Hi, it's Dr. Joni. Do you want your child to move better, quicker? Do you want to be less patient for change? I know that as a pediatric PT, I developed a lot of patience. When I first started in the field, now we're talking more years than I'd like to reveal right now. That's okay, 22 years. But when I first started, I was really frustrated because I wanted things to change quickly. You know, you get involved in pediatric PT because you want to make change, you want to help kids, you want to help them develop new skills, all of these things. So you have these big high hopes in mind. And of course, as a parent, you're looking for the same thing. You want to help your child and you want to help them yesterday, let's be honest. So becoming really patient, well, it was what it was. I became really patient, but at the same time, I constantly, and when I say constantly, I mean constantly. I mean reading journal articles, reading books, talking to other therapists, taking courses, all of those things. I constantly looked for how can I do things better because I wanted to get results quicker. So how was I going to get results as quick as possible so that my kids could meet their goals as quick as possible? That's what I want to talk about because guess what? I found it. So, I now combine lots of tools and I pull from a lot of different approaches, and most importantly, because you'll see in my book, the first part is connections, because that relationship is so important and cannot be forgotten when you're working with children. So there's a lot of different components, but the big practice altering, life-changing thing that happened for me and happened for a lot of the kids that I work with is called Total Motion Release Tots and Teens, or TMR for short. Now, TMR, what is it? Some therapists have heard of it and think that it's a manual therapy, it's another hands-on approach. Some parents, they may have heard us tell them, do twisting this way, or can you feel how your child can't go one way, they can go another. Sometimes they're told to feel that and they're like, whoa, wait, my kid can't move in the other direction and I had no idea. So what TMR is, it is a big overarching philosophy. It is Susan Blum who developed the pediatric piece of it. She says that it's the toolbox, not a tool. So in the world of pediatric therapy, we kind of talk about that we have a toolbox and we have different things that we pull out for different kids, different situations, different needs. Every kid is an individual. But when she talks about that TMR is a toolbox, what that means is that TMR is a whole lens. It's a way to approach how to help a child. And yes, we may still pull in different tools. So we may be pulling in something like electrical stimulation, we may be pulling in Theratogs, we may be pulling in, you see the swing in the back, we may be using the swing, we may be using the spider cage, we may be using all these different tools, but it is an overall lens of why we're using the tools and how we're gonna use those tools to accomplish a goal. So what is TMR? Let's just talk about what is this toolbox. So TMR is a way to analyze how the body is moving. It's a way to break it down. It is often that thing no one can put their finger on. I'll have a lot of parents come and tell me that something was going on. They can tell their child's movements are a little stiff when they move certain ways, or something looks a little awkward, but they can't put their finger on it. This is usually what we're able to put our finger on. So we can identify in a much more specific way exactly where the problem is. And once you identify where the problem is, then you have a way to help improve it. So what it is, it's a systematic way of, and I love that part, systematic, which means it is reproducible. And that's key. It is not, we are flinging things at the wall and seeing what's gonna stick. We are instead systematically looking at different movement patterns, test, retest, approaching it as scientists. So we have a set of movement patterns we're going to look at. At the same time, let's say there's a different movement pattern we see in that individual child. That is one we're going to look at. We're looking at differences between sides. We're looking at one way to move versus the other way, moving that way to the left compared to moving that way to the right. We're looking at what works really well and what is really challenging. We're looking at all of those pieces and breaking it down to movement patterns, not to muscles, not to just joints, because that's not how we move. We move in 3D patterns. And so we want to address each child and treat them in their 3D patterns. We can break things down small when we need. We can kind of zoom out. We can kind of zoom in to approach it however we need it at the moment. What TMR is then is a way to analyze different movement patterns. And then treatment-wise, we generally, there's no hard and fast rule because, like I said, we are looking at the individual and we are going to test and retest. So when we test and retest, there may be 99% of the time it works the way I'm going to describe, but there may be 1% that responds better to the opposite. And that's why we need to approach it as a scientist, test, retest, and adjust based on the response. So what is this 99% of the time? When we look at how a person moves, what's easy, what's hard, we can then look at what is that easy pattern. Is it easier to twist to the left versus the right? And generally when we're looking at that twist, we're looking at how that whole rib cage moves one way compared to the other. A lot of our kids will move just with their shoulder, and the shoulders will be hypermobile, but the rib cage isn't actually moving anywhere. So we don't want to kind of let our kids' brilliant compensations fool us when we're trying to break down movement patterns. So we're looking at, let's say, for example, we were talking about twists. This is called the upper twist, how the child moves to one way versus the other way. In traditional therapy, we identify the hard thing and we practice it. So let's say a child moves easily to the left, which is more common, and it's harder to go to the right. Traditionally, we would say, oh, well, we need to do stretching of moving to the right. So a child would either practice twisting right or be positioned in that position, or they would hold there. Why do we do that? Because we're applying the whole science of stretching to that issue. Do we know that's the best way? Have we tried the opposite? No, we're just applying what we've learned in the past from orthopedic situations and applying that to this situation. Let's instead approach it as a scientist, test and retest, and then decide if it's the better. Because what I've seen in 99% of the time now that I've been taught to look at our options and not just do things the way we always did, is let's twist to the easy side and then let's see what happens. So for I'm going to show you mine. So right now, and it's usually the opposite. No, my easy side right now is the right. So this is just an example where we would hold it to that side, either for a period of time or repetitions. We would hold it to that side. I'm just going to keep talking while I do my twist. And we're going to shorten the tight stuff. So generally with stretching, we're just pulling on the tight stuff. We're pulling, 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 pulling. So with shortening, whatever's tight, we're going to actually go more into that direction. So it's kind of like if you had a knot in a necklace, instead of pulling, which we all know that makes it tighter, that doesn't solve the problem, we're going to slacken it. Then that knot tends to open up a little bit and then you can get it out. Or if you have a drawer that's stuck, you don't want to pull, 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 because what happens when you pull, pull, pull? Nothing. It's just stuck, 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 stuck. But if you push it back in, often then you can open it up. So the body, we can do a similar thing. People have been doing this in the world of osteopathy for 100 years. This is not a novel concept, it's just how it's applied. So we twist into that preferred direction. We twist, 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 and then we can retest that other side. And I find that now I'm actually rotating better to the left side. So we test, retest. Let's say it got worse going to the left. I would say, okay, that didn't work. Let's try it one more time just to make sure. So then I would check it again. Still got worse? Okay, we don't want to do that again. Let's do the opposite. And then let's see if it got better. So that's kind of how we treat when it comes to TMR. So we're assessing our different movement patterns, what's easy, what's hard, and then treatment-wise, we're looking at how do we go into the easy side, And how do we kind of work that so then things open up and we have more access to both sides. So the reason this is the key to a lot of our kids and a lot of some of their can't put my finger on it stuff for our kids who are more active, who are less kind of neurologically impaired, so our kids who are walking and running and doing those things, as well as our kids who are more neurologically impaired, who are working on gross motor skills like sitting and crawling, walking. It's a lot of these kids are having the same challenges that can be addressed in similar ways. And so, because the way it impacts a lot of our kids is their basic balance reactions and their basic breathing skills, which impacts their sensory skills as well. So when we use our balance reactions and we kind of wiggle from one butt cheek to another, and we wiggle and we wiggle, what we're actually doing is we're shortening one side of the body and we're rotating as well. So one side gets long and we're twisting to the other, and the other side gets long and we're twisting to the other. And that's how our balance reactions work automatically without thought. So what happens to a lot of our kids is they will find it easier to go one way. So they'll go that way, go that way, to go that way. But when they have to go the other, let's say they need to look to the other direction or they have to reach for something there, when they go to the other, some kids fall off their chair. People think, oh, they're being silly, they are causing trouble, they're being a jokester, or they're not getting enough sensory input. Put a wobble cushion on their chair, but the kids actually cannot move their bodies in a way that makes this work for them. They can go this way all day long, but going the other way, not gonna work. Some of our kids who have high tone, it may kick in tone. So some of our kids are gonna be comfortable here. The second they have to go the other way, you're gonna see something kind of kick in and maybe, again, can't put your finger on it. But when you break it down, you can put your finger on it. So that is a little overview of what TMR is. It is an overall view of how to break down the body into movement patterns and then how to use what this child's strengths are, what are their easier movement patterns, what are the skills they do have, which builds on so many positive things all at the same time. So it all layers. You have a child looking at using their easier side. So you're gonna have things balance out from that perspective. You're building on their confidence because you're using their easier side. And now they're learning, I can do that. Their confidence is making them want to try it again. So then they're getting some more natural practice. And that stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks where you're helping them develop more ability of controlling their bodies, but that's building their confidence to want to try more, which is developing new skills. And it stacks and creates this positive feedback cycle versus our kids who are stuck in this negative feedback cycle is, let's not try, this is not gonna work, I'm going in the wrong direction. Let's get this pattern of, this is working, I'm doing something new, I'm doing something good, I'm doing something successful, and let's build off of that. That is what I believe passionately that TMR gives to our kids. And this is why I'm sharing this information with you. Any questions? Put them down in the comments. I am happy to reach out and have a conversation with parents who want to learn more, with therapists who want to learn more. I had shared a blog post after my very, very first TMR course, and it was filled with questions. It was sharing some of the initial successes, but it was very open about, I don't know, let's see. And a therapist just reached out saying, well, this was 10 years ago. What do you think now? Well, that was a really fun reflection for me to do and a fun answer for me to give, because I went from that initial class of, there's something interesting here. There's something really, okay, let's go. And then working with Susan and being part of the team that kind of developed and evolved TMR Tots and Teens over time and that process. And it really was a fun reflection to then share, well, what this TMR has been after that first course is practice altering. And because I had this before and after of, I was a pediatric PT for 10 years prior to learning TMR, I kind of got to see what changes happened in both ways. Remember that real patient PT of me that developed, which I talked about at the beginning, and then this TMR version of me that I've been doing for the last 12 years now. So there are kids that I would have seen for 6 months pre-TMR that now I know I see for 6 visits. I've seen similar changes in 3 visits. So there's a different timeline now. And it depends on the child, and it depends what they're dealing with. And there are kids that are going to need a lot of, more therapy over time than that. But there are also kids that this little thing opens up things like that, and their worlds change, and their worlds change fast and quickly, and they run with it. And then there's kids who this TMR may change something that may look small to someone else. But I have work with a teen with cerebral palsy who she stopped drooling after we did TMR. And that may be a small thing to another person. Did she learn to walk? Did she learn, to crawl or be independently mobile? No, those changes didn't happen. But for a child and a teen to no longer deal with drooling and wearing something to catch the drool and having to change that many times throughout the day, for her overall hygiene, for her comfort, for her social interaction with peers, that is huge. It's huge to that family. It's huge to that child. So our changes are not, we're not making promises to be able to heal, severe neurological impairments or to be able to, make promises of things outside of what we can do in physical therapy. There is so much happening in the future, and it's an exciting time to be in this world. However, I do know we can make a lot more rapid change and powerful change with TMR than without it. And that's what's so exciting about it in the world of pediatric PT. So like I said, share any comments below, reach out to me directly. I can always be found at KidPT, either on our email, info@kidpt.com. Find us on our website. There's a lot of information on there. We have a lot of videos, but I'm excited to share with you just an introduction on TMR, what it is, what it isn't, and we're gonna talk a lot more about it in the coming months so you can learn more about this exciting approach to pediatric therapy that really fits in with my philosophy of how do we work smarter and not just harder, and how do we really help our kids, our young adults with various developmental challenges, really just maximize their potential in a powerful way. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.